The story of Prophet Yaqub. Prophet Yaqub, alayhi salam, was the son of Prophet Ishaq and Rifaka, and was also the grandson of Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salam. Prophet Yaqub also had a twin brother named Esau. Esau was very envious of Yaqub, as he was favored by their father and was also blessed with prophethood by Allah. There was a time where Yaqub's brother was very angry with him, and due him being a threat, he fled the city to the land of Haran, where he stayed with the brother of his mother, Rifaka, Laban, and to reside with him for a period of time, and to also marry one of the Laban's daughters. Yaqub had left his family, and he was walking alone for some time. When night came, he became tired and found a place to rest. He took a stone and put it under his head and slept. He then began to dream, and in his dream he saw a ladder from heaven to earth. Angels were ascending and descending. It was then when Allah addressed him and said to him, "I will bless you and your offspring and make this land for you and for those who come after you." He then woke up and felt joyful from what he had seen in his dream, and vowed, for Allah's sake, that if he returned to his family safely, he would build here a temple for Allah the Almighty. He also vowed to give 1/10 of his property for the sake of Allah. He poured oil on the stone to recognize it for when he comes across this land again. This location was to be the location of what is known as Jerusalem today. Yaqub finally had come to his maternal uncle in the land of Haran, where he also met his 2 daughters, Leah and Rahil. Yaqub eventually fell in love with Rahil, to which he asked his uncle for blessings to marry her. His uncle agreed to marry his daughter to him on the condition that Yaqub works for him and looks after his sheep for 7 years. After the period of time, his uncle prepared a feast and gathered people for the wedding, where he prepared a marriage for Yaqub and instead Leah, the elder daughter, to him at night. She was weak-sighted and ugly. When morning came, Yaqub discovered she was Leah. He complained to his uncle. He said, "You deceived me. I was engaged to Rahil and you married me to Leah." His uncle said, "It is not our tradition to marry the younger daughter before the elder daughter. However, if you love her sister, work another 7 years, and I will marry you to both of them." Yaqub worked extremely hard for another 7 years, and then eventually was married to both daughters. His first wife, Leah, gave birth to 7 sons and a daughter as well. His second wife, Rahil, whom Prophet Yaqub was very fond of, did not have a son. So she prayed to Allah, who heard her call and responded to her prayer. She then gave birth to Yusuf, alayhi salam. Yaqub stayed in the land of Haran and continued working for Laban for 20 years. One day, the Prophet met his uncle and asked him to let him go and visit his family. "I have been blessed because of you," said Laban. "Ask for whatever you need. Give me each speckled, spotted and black lamb that will be born this year," said Yaqub. Laban agreed, and the Prophet walked away happily. However, Laban was not willing to part with the sheep he owned, even though it was Yaqub who took care of them. He asked his sons to take away all the speckled, spotted and black sheep from the flock. When Yaqub returned that evening, he realized that he had been deceived by his uncle. But despite Laban's tricks, when the sheep bred, many of them were born black. This was a miracle from Allah. When Laban saw this, he was both surprised and angry at the Prophet, as he had promised all the black lambs to Yaqub. One day, Allah then inspired the Prophet to finally return back to his country. The Prophet told his wives and children and prepared to leave Haran. He took everything that belonged to him, including the spotted and black lambs. The Prophet did not tell Laban about his plans and left without saying goodbye. The next morning, Laban realized that Yaqub had taken all his belongings and left the land. He was very angry. The Prophet and his family walked, then started traveling towards his country. When the prophet reached the land of Seir, he sent a messenger to his brother Esau, asking forgiveness. The next day, the messenger returned with the news that Esau was riding toward him with 400 men. The prophet was afraid, so he prayed to Allah, seeking his help. The prophet then prepared a great present for his brother. He asked his servants to take 200 goats, 200 ewes, 30 camels, and many other animals along with them. He asked them to go ahead before him and told them, "When you meet my brother, he will ask you who you are, and you should say they belong to your servant Yaqub, and the animals are the present for his master Esau." The prophet remained with his 2 wives, his slaves, and his children for 2 nights, whereas the slaves did as they were asked to and went ahead of the prophet. One day, at the break of the dawn, the prophet was sitting outside his tent when an angel appeared before him in the shape of a man. Then the angel started to wrestle with the prophet. They fought neck to neck until the angel injured the prophet's thigh and the prophet became lame. The sun had started rising up by now, and the angel asked him, "What is your name?" "Yaqub," replied the prophet. "From this day you shall be called Israel," said the angel, and suddenly he vanished. The prophet could not believe his eyes, and he realized that the man was actually an angel. The prophet then continued traveling for many days. Yaqub raised his eyes, to which he saw his brother Esau in the distance. Yaqub prostrated 7 times before him, for it was their salutation in that time. Esau was stunned when he saw this, so he ran towards him and embraced him. "Who are these people with you?" asked Esau when he saw the women and children. "They were given to me by our God," said the prophet humbly. Leah, Rahel, the children, and all his slaves came and prostrated before Esau as a sign of respect. Esau refused to accept the gifts at first, but the prophet insisted, and he had to accept them at last. All of them then started traveling back to their country, and they were led by none other than Esau. On their way back, the prophet passed by Jerusalem, to which he then stumbled across the rock that he had poured the oil on years ago, to which he then built an altar in that area. The prophet then traveled to Hebron and met his father, Prophet Ishak. Ishak was really happy when he met his son after a long time. However, after some time, Prophet Ishak became very ill and died at the age of 180 years old, to which he was then buried next to his father, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Prophet Yaqub had 12 sons in total, and Prophet Yusuf was one among them. They eventually migrated to Egypt, and they lived there for 17 years. And after living and preaching to the people about Allah and Islam for a long time, the prophet died at the age of 147, to which his son Yusuf alayhi salam then succeeded him as a prophet. Thank you for watching the video. If you have enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. Take care, brothers and sisters, and see you in the next video.